In this recording, I'll be talking about R3 and how the orientation of the axis in 3 dimension works.
What we used to look at as the XY plane ends up being the YZ plane. And the x-axis is meant to come out from this origin dot straight out, but to be able to see it and draw it in 2 dimension, we bring out the x from the origin pointing in this direction. These are the sides that are considered positive, positive x, positive y, positive z. So if I wanted to look at negative z, negative y, I would go in this direction, the old negative x. And then for negative x, you go back further into the screen, and then z will come down and head down south. So these are my negative values. Since often it is going to get too crowded, we don't want to sketch all the possible axes that we might use for plotting a particular point or a surface. You just basically look at what you need. Okay, now I wanted to also point out what in regards to the old octants we had. So let me just put on the side here. In R2, we had XY plane, and then this became quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, and we all know what's going on with values of x. You have, this is the origin, of course. This is where x, y are positive, and then x is negative, y is positive, x is negative, y is negative, and then x is positive, y is negative. All right, so to bring this into R3, instead of 4 quadrants, we're going to have 8 octants. And the way the octants are going to be looked at is my best advice is to consider, so there's 8 octants. If I split them up into 2 groups, one being the Z positive group. So Z positive, that means I'm on the top, looking at everything that is Z positive. And where you're above the XY plane, then you go around and look at the XY plane here as, and then label as you would the octants, the quadrants, meaning in the, let's erase as much as possible. So I'm in the Z positive, so I'm above the XY plane. And then what would be considered this part of the XY plane? This would be referencing the quadrants would be quadrant 1. So Z positive, X positive, Y positive is going to be our octant 1. Okay, then we're going to stay with Z positive. Instead, now we're going to move to quadrant 2 for the XY plane, which quadrant 2 now says, so Z is positive still for this first grouping. And what does quadrant 2 say? It says X is negative, Y is positive. This would be octant 2. And then you go all around and maybe you get the idea here. Then you go to, for octant 3, we're going to go to quadrant 3 of the XY plane with Z being positive. So I have X is negative, Y is negative. That's my octant 3. And the fourth one is right here, referencing quadrant 4. I have Z positive, X positive, Y negative, and that's your octant 4. All right, and then what happens for the next, so this is 4 of the octants, the next set comes from looking below the XY plane. And by that I mean everything works the same way, except now you're going to consider, so this is all looking at above the XY plane. So this same four setups. You can have Z when we're looking at below, and then you go around for all the negative values of Z, you go through the same process. So now we are focusing down here, Z below the XY plane, but we still go and label our quadrants for the next octant. So like octant, um, let's see, octant 5, for example, Z is negative, and I'm back to quadrant 1, which is X is positive, Y is positive. And let's just to keep see if you guys are on track, what would the condition for octant 7 or 8 be here? 8. So if I were to fill this out, what would you put here? Well, for 8, you're going to, because you're in the Z negative case, you're going to essentially look at what happens in quadrant 4 when Z is negative. That would be 8. So octant 8, X is positive and Y is negative. So this is octant 8. And so that's basically what you want to, and also just to throw a couple of things out there. What octant is 2, 1, negative 3 in? 2, 1, negative 3. X is positive. See, the fact that Z is negative 3, you know you're past octant 4. So it's either 5, 6, 7, or 8, but X and Y are positive, so it's the first octant when the Z turns negative. So this will be octant, what do you think? 5, right? So that's what I wanted to just point out for you.